I'll go get straight to the point with this one, and it is related to my previous video. I I am thinking of those in the UK, ostensibly British citizens, who really, even now, continue to cheer for Donald Trump. Honestly, they disgust me. I don't understand their mindset. I can almost understand the culture wars thing, like they support Trump because they don't like what they would see as the woke left or whatever, and they see Trump as tackling that in the United States. But the current situation is actually a good test. Any so-called patriot that cheers for Trump right now is a fake. This is a president who's basically um, declared economic war on an old ally, the United Kingdom. Granted, 10% isn't the sort of level you get with other countries, but it's tariffs are tariffs. Now, some say it's all hot air and Trump won't go through with it. That may or may not be true, but frankly, it's beside the point. Even if Trump doesn't go through with it, the rhetoric alone is a problem. For one thing, it's insulting. And secondly, as I've said in other videos, this galvanizes Moscow and Beijing. That's the sheer stupidity of Trump's position. He thinks what he's doing is making America strong. But by creating divisions in the West, he's emboldening adversaries. Remember, it's Donald Trump that invited Putin to Alaska. But I'm particularly thinking in this video of the useful idiots in our midst. Now, I got a lot of slack for criticising Tommy Robinson recently. And you know what? With the events of the last 48 hours, I'm going to reiterate that. In fact, I'm going to double down on it to the point where I am even more convinced that I was right about that. The hell with Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson isn't a patriot. What sort of patriot invites a foreign leader to invade this country? So I stand by what I said, 100%. And if you're one of the hooligans or the wife beaters or the other pond life that support Tommy Robinson, you're busy terrorising migrants or putting out fake information online with AI generated images that aren't accurate, do not tell me that you're patriots. Don't think that you have a moral high ground over anyone on patriotism when you're supporting a guy who has invited a foreign leader to invade this country. So to hell with Tommy Robinson, and to hell with all the other plastic patriots who have made a name for themselves literally attacking others. Some might think the word traitor is too loaded. And I'm not talking in a legal sense of the word. It may be that technically he hasn't broken any laws, but I'm talking about, morally speaking, if you're inviting a foreign leader to invade this country, what the hell would you call that except treason? And this isn't about Starmer. I'm furious with Starmer right now. I'll get into that in a second. But some people have said, going against the government doesn't make someone a traitor. I agree, it doesn't. But I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about the country. Robinson isn't saying just come in and remove Keir Starmer. He's inviting Donald Trump to come into this country. And I don't care if it was tongue-in-cheek. That's what he said. If he didn't mean it, let him apologise. Let him regret his words. But that would require showing some humility, which Robinson doesn't have. And as for the man of the people line that his supporters come out with, like he's some sort of grassroots campaigner, he's funded by the world's richest man. Tommy Robinson's a con man, funded by the world's richest man. That's the truth. But I don't want to give him more oxygen than he deserves. I want to speak in broader terms here. I will say this. The only major party leader, in my view, who has consistently called out Donald Trump is Sir Ed Davey of the Liberal Democrats. He's the only one. Yes, Zach Balansky has, but I don't consider the Greens a major party. And I'm sure the SNP has, and probably other smaller parties have. But among the major parties, i.e. parties with more than 10 MPs, Ed Davey's the only one. Starmer I'll get to in a minute. Kimmy Badenoch I don't trust. She might, criticise Trump's tariffs. Farage has even criticised them. As he pointed out, that's not how you treat an old ally. I don't trust Nigel Farage. He's saying what he has to say. He can't really be seen to be supporting Trump right now. But look at his track record, as Ed Davey has pointed out. And people have said this is Davey being obsessed by Farage. No, I think it's very relevant with someone who could potentially be making gains. I mean, Reform has been getting a lot of Tory defectors. So Reform is making gains. Therefore, it is important that Farage is scrutinised. His entire track record has been to pander to Trump. To stand next to him like a Cheshire cat grinning and literally help him get re-elected. He's probably spent more time at Trump rallies than he has serving the people of Clacton-on-Sea. So I think Davey is absolutely right to scrutinise Farage. Badenoch, like I said, don't trust her. Her first act, or one of her first things as opposition leader, was to attack David Lammy and the Prime Minister on previous things they'd said about Trump, and she thought she was being clever doing it. Well, where are you today, Kimmy Badenoch? Are you criticising these tariffs? And if you're criticising them, will you go further? Criticise Donald Trump by name? Are you scared to do that? As for Keir Starmer, I hate to say it, but we've got a weak Prime Minister. I've said a lot about my views on his appeasing of China. Apparently he's going to approve of the mega embassy this week. Disgraceful. I know that we have to work with China. You can't completely block out the world's second biggest economy, but there's a difference between working with Beijing and pandering to them. I think that Starmer is giving them far, far too much ground. And he's doing the same with Trump. Now, technically, he's criticised the tariffs, and he's criticised the threats towards Danish and indeed Greenlandish sovereignty, but he's not going far enough. He still refuses to criticise Trump by name, and he's refusing any sort of reciprocation tariffs at all. He's just ruling it out. He hasn't even said, we're not considering this. He's just said that isn't going to happen. That's weakness. And yes, it's true that no one wins in a trade war, but you still don't give the aggressor the impression that they can get away with it. The European Union's taking a stronger line on this, including the possible option of retaliatory tariffs. So why is Starmer not considering that? Could it be the political situation that we're in because of Brexit? Magic bloody Brexit that was supposed to solve everything. We're in a situation where we've had to be overly reliant on the United States and China and other economies. It makes absolute sense to be working very closely with our closest neighbours alongside the Commonwealth. I just don't see how anyone could see otherwise. This is the situation that we're in. But if you're British and you're cheering for Donald Trump, firstly, shame on you. But secondly, I don't know what sort of mindset those people have. I think it's a treacherous position. What sort of patriot cheers on a foreign leader as he's putting economic warfare on this country? It's got nothing to do with defending Starmer. I've criticised Starmer. I'd like to see Starmer being a lot more outspoken. I'd like to see Starmer threatening to recall the American ambassador to explain things. There's another thing I failed to mention earlier. Apparently Mike Johnson, the speaker, is going to address our parliament. In this context, at this time, I'm utterly disgusted by that. No senior American representative should be given VIP treatment other than what's necessary, but to be treated like an honoured guest, in the same sort of way that Emmanuel Macron and the King of Spain and other VIPs have been treated. I think that's a total disgrace at this time. And Lindsay Hoyle needs to be refusing it. I don't understand the logic in that. Giving him honoured status like that. Johnson is a big Trump apologist. So I'm not just saying that because he's American. He is a Trump apologist and a Trump enabler. So I'm disgusted by that. I put a question on my channel earlier, should the King go ahead with a state visit? And there's mixed results on that. Like I say, I go back to the results after a few days. I don't believe the King should go. Because this isn't just about Trump's tariffs on the UK. Trump has directly threatened Canada. Canada isn't just an ally of the United Kingdom, it's actually part of the King's realm. He's King of Canada as well. So for the King to go to the United States, I think would be a betrayal of Canada. So far I've defended Charles. I think he's been a good constitutional monarch. But if he does this, I think it would be a serious mistake, and I'll criticise it. A serious mistake. I think that would be tone deaf. I think it would be wrong. And I think it would be pandering to a bully. We have to stop giving the United States of America, by which I mean the Trump administration, this notion that they can do as they please. It sickens me. Really, really, it sickens me. There was apparently an NBA game in London, and the Star Spangled Banner was being played, and someone heckled and said, "Leave Greenland alone." Now, usually I'm not a fan of heckling. I think it's immature and misplaced, but I do think that there needs to be backlash against the United States generally. And unfortunately, there may be decent Americans that could tar with the same brush. I don't advocate that. I know that there's many Americans who are frankly risking their lives in some cases. So we should remember that not every American is a Trump enabler. But the truth is, Trump did get back into power by popular vote, not by the Electoral College. So in 2024, a majority of Americans who could vote put him back into office. I do have a huge amount of sympathy for those anti-Trump Americans who have to live under him. I mean, it's bad enough for us outsiders, but imagine living in America right now if you're anti-Trump. France is a fascist, like his boss, and they will do everything they can to rein in on dissent. I honestly think it's not hyperbole to say that they're fascistic. They're showing basically all the signs of fascist leaders. Really, if you look at it, there isn't a great deal of difference between the approach that Donald Trump takes and the approach that Mussolini took. Vilifying opposition, cracking down on dissent, demagogue language, there really isn't much difference. When Trump said that migrants are poisoning the blood of our nation, that isn't just saying we need to control our borders and we need to vet who comes into this country. That is dehumanizing people. That's inflammatory, dangerous language. So for people in this country to cheer on this man, I just think they're pathetic. And I call on all decent conservatives. Hell, I even call on decent members of the Reform Party, because there are a few. I have a few subscribers who are members of the Reform Party. I know they're decent people, and I hope you see where I'm coming from. If it's really about patriotism, prove it. This is a leader that is threatening tariffs against this country. Now, criticise Starmer if you want, but it's Donald Trump that's making the decision to do that. So my challenge to all self-ascribed patriots who have praised Trump in the past, now is your opportunity to show that you really are patriotic. Even Farage had to do it, but I don't trust Farage. I think that's just a temporary bit of convenience, Like I say, the only major party leader that has consistently called out Trump is Ed Davey. I'm not saying Davey's perfect. Davey has some controversy around the post-Massa scandal, which I'm sure he has to answer for. But in terms of calling out Donald Trump, he has done it. The most Starmer could muster up is, we don't agree with this. Words are cheap. And for Starmer to absolutely rule out tariffs and reciprocation, I think that's a mistake. You don't take your cards off the table when you're in that sort of situation. I understand that a trade war benefits no one, but this is something that Trump's initiated. So are we just going to let him do it? With absolutely, okay, well, we'll just put up with it. That hurts British businesses. Starmer, unfortunately, is showing himself to be a weak Prime Minister. He's weak on Trump and he's weak on China. And they are two very, very critical areas. So I want to see a Prime Minister with a backbone to stand up to Donald Trump. I also will reiterate what I said earlier. I think Western countries need to get together and realise, okay, individually that you can't take on the power of the United States. Collectively, I think you can. You know, Trump's tantrum earlier, that pathetic message he sent to the Norwegian Prime Minister, really should say everything we need to know about what sort of person Donald Trump is. This is a petulant toddler who is in one of the world's most powerful jobs. A 79-year-old man who behaves like a 7-year-old. Really. I mean, there has never been an example, as far as I know, of a Nobel laureate who has aggressively lobbied to get the Nobel Prize. It's just utterly pathetic. It demeans his office and it shows what sort of person Donald Trump is. And we've got 3 more years of this. How much more damage can he do in 3 more years? The worst president in American history, and I think a threat to this country, quite frankly. What we need to do is work with America where we absolutely have to, but I frankly think we need to put up a bit of a cold shoulder here. We need to distance ourselves somewhat. This obsession with trying to please Washington all the time, there's no honour in that. And the thing is, it doesn't actually work. If it was the logic of, well, we should just try and pander to Trump so it'll soften the blow, it doesn't actually work anyway. Look at the state visit. Trump was wined and dined, treated as a VIP. Only one of the very few American presidents to get that honour of a double state visit. And look at how we've been repaid. So Starmer, I hope he feels foolish. I hope he realises that was a serious mistake. I give Davey credit for keeping up the heat, and I hope he does. I hope when it comes to Prime Minister's questions, let's see this Monday, Wednesday, I hope there is some serious heat in Parliament. I don't trust Badenoch, I don't trust Farage, and I don't trust Starmer. So Davey needs to use his spot to really, really hammer this and shame all 3 of them for their pandering to Trump. But the most important is Starmer because he's Prime Minister. So I hope Davey echoes what he's been saying online. Now, some people might say, oh, he'll never be Prime Minister, so he can afford to do that. It may be true that he'll never be Prime Minister, but put it this way, if he ever did become Prime Minister, he's not holding back now. You know, so it's not a case of he's holding back in case he ever gets into that office and, you know, Trump might be in power and he has to be careful what he says. He is being absolutely upfront about it. And I give him credit for that. And it's made me more likely to vote Liberal Democrat. I'm not 100% sold on them, but I am encouraged by this. It is good to see a major political party, you know, not afraid to speak out on Donald Trump. And for the record, they've also spoken out on China and Russia. So the Liberal Democrats have been consistent in this regard. You can't say that about any of the other parties. I mean, the Tories might have been hardline on Russia, not on China, not on Trump. Same with Labour. As for reform, you know, it's Farage is saying what he needs to say right now, but I absolutely do not trust reform when it comes to Russia or Trump. In fact, they're absolute bottom of the list.